Hello everybody and welcome to Amphlett Reviews, back another Hong Kong content review, continuing on with the Lau Kar-leung series with the shadow boxing, the aka sequel, but more of a spiritual sequel to the spiritual boxing that was his first featured debut. And this is a returning back of Wan Yu, and you've got Gordon Liu also added into the mix. And this is straight up for a new year now with Lau Kar-leung. We're having a really fantastic year from the last video I did with the Shallow Mantis. And this is going into more of his, back to his roots essentially, I guess. More of a kind of a breezy, fun, light-hearted, almost like a palate cleanser movie, going back to basics essentially, with terms of its tone, in terms of its pacing, a gimmicky, fun, horror comedy, hopping vampire with some martial arts kind of fights thrown in for a good mix, with some returning actors of Gordon Liu and Wan Yu, and even Lau Kar-leung joins the cast as the master character, who is the kind of black magic kind of courts hurdler, as they say in the film, which he's addicted to gambling and is a bit of a drunk and someone who is very much in tune with the kind of the mystic arts, and essentially. So this is the original kind of prototype, pre-Mr. Vampire, Countess of a Spooky Kind, one of the first of the horror comedy movies that Shaw Brothers were doing during that time. This is a lot more fun, a lot more kind of breezy, light-hearted. And to my surprise also, they've announced recently that they will be doing the 88 film edition, part of the Asian collection, later in this year, about September time, I believe, in 2024, an official release, which is very, very exciting because this doesn't have an actual Blu-ray release, surprisingly. This is one of the films that is locked away on DVD and very hard access to get hold of. So the fact that they are doing official, an 88 film edition to add to the collection, which makes sense because they've also did spiritual boxing, which is very, very good news for sure. Definitely one we'll be picking up and add into the collection. As mentioned, the shadow boxing is a very nice, light-hearted, fun, kind of easy film to get into. Essentially, what the film is Wan Yu's character, which is our main protagonist. Lau Kar-leung is the master character, which has basically been doing this kind of corpse hurdling for about 20 years. They are dabbling into the kind of the black magic, and they have control over these corpses, which are potentially vampires. I don't know what the circumstances in this world is. The introduction of the film is actually quite funny because it actually kind of tells you about, basically, this is a world where hopping vampires do exist, or vampires exist essentially, and whether you believe the facts or not is up to you. So they kind of put you in a really good state of mind from the start of the film, straight away from the narration, and basically saying it's up to you if you believe these events are accurate or not, adding into the kind of the fun aspect to it. And essentially they are doing these kind of incarnations. They do these kind of ritualistic kind of process where they have very different spells which do various different kind of things, and their business is essentially they're taking these corpses which are potentially could become vampires, I guess, and travel them from point A to point B and basically give them back to their families in coffins, and you basically hurdle them from place to place, making some money alongside it. But they have to do some very specific kind of spells to kind of allow them to move and to put them into kind of the resting places, and have the very traditional kind of costume and look that we know from much later movies with Mr. Vampire and the Countess of a Spooky Kind, which will go a lot more horror, a lot more kind of practical gore effects, special effects kind of heavy. They would really kind of amp up the comedy, but also amp up the kind of the craziness and the gore factor to it. But this one's a much more tamer. It's much more like fascinating, wacky kind of concept, with these characters alongside it, than it is more of a horror film, which is perfectly fine. I actually found it to be quite engaging from start to finish, and the process of it, with the style of the movie showing him kind of, basically kind of pampering the kind of corpse and doing water and combing it and kind of, making it look good and presentable, and making it move via these kind of like ritualistic kind of spells. And essentially the plot of the film, you've got a new corpse show up, played by Gordon Liu, which is acting very strange, isn't acting to the commands from the spells that's been kind of casted by kind of Wan Yu's character. And when they're traveling from place to place from these kind of checkpoints, Gordon Liu's character is acting very bizarre and kind of hopping off to random places and not really kind of following commands, and doing winks and using his tongue and adding a bit of kind of slapstick kind of humor in the kind of mix to it. And as you can see, my cat Apollo is joining in on the fun as well. Gordon Liu's character is, of course, pretending to be a hopping vampire and going from place to place alongside the kind of the hurdle, skipping all these checkpoints because he's a wanted fugitive from escaping prison. And there's a bit of a traditional revenge plot mixed in, where he's doing kind of gimmicky things as mentioned, and it later revealed that he is the escaped fugitive, and he brings the kind of the martial arts kind of fun action element to it within the kind of late third act of the film, while also giving some bit of a comedy, a bit of a kind of banter alongside our two main protagonist characters. The master character has injured himself within a kind of confrontation during the kind of the middle act of the film, revolving gambling debts, and it's up to our main protagonist character, Wan Yu, alongside the supporting character, which is the sort of semi-love interest, pretending to be a man and basically trying to escape a kind of arranged marriage, and she's the kind of like the apprentice of him because he's very forgetful of certain spells, and she's bringing much more of that kind of sillier kind of comedy towards it, with her overreacting and being kind of not knowing how to handle these kind of hopping vampires and this business, and bit of a kind of a fun kind of dynamic those two have, nice and fluffy and fun in the film. And you also have the kind of the kick-ass fights and martial arts kind of third act stuff, which is great, mixed with kind of vampires in it alongside. It never really goes full horror or anything. It is very kind of, as mentioned, tamed, but also just fun and appropriate to the film anyway. I'm not expecting a full-on 18 rated film here. I'm expecting just a fun, nice kind of journey. Overall, the shadow boxing is a very worthy kind of spiritual sequel to the first entry with the spiritual boxing. It's very much in line, very much in tone of that first film, with having some great action set moments. So that definitely ups up the ante of its fights compared to the original film did. It definitely has more going on this one. It's got a great supporting cast. It's got a really intriguing kind of narrative and characters and mythology and the rules of the kind of the hopping vampire. Very much acts as a kind of a prototype, kind of, very much guide leading into this kind of world of kind of black magic and more supernatural kind of, hijinks. This film was a nice little tight little budget for Shaw Brothers, and probably made quite a lot of money in the box office as well, utilizing kind of Shaw Brothers kind of, a lot, and having a couple of, set locations. So what are your thoughts and opinions on the shadow boxing? Love to know your thoughts and opinions, guys. Please comment down below. Meantime, guys, Amphlett Reviews, signing out.